Welcome back to Askademic's Basic English course. This is video 7. Today we will be discussing family. I am so excited. This is the last content video of this course. Let's get started. Okay, so first we need to talk about some vocabulary with families. Talking about families can be difficult because I am called differently. I am a different member of the family depending on who is talking. So I have some words here. I encourage you to look them up if you don't know what they are. We will talk about them, but they are a little bit confusing, so the more you can reference them, the better. So I will read them for you. And once again, I encourage you to pause the video and try reading them on your own as well. So, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, mother, father, sister, brother, daughter, son, niece, nephew. Okay, so again, it's great if you can look up what these words mean, but let's take a look at some basic definitions of these different terms. Okay, let's talk about some definitions of these family terms. Now, bear with me, this is a little bit difficult, it can be a little confusing. So, let's try it together. We have grandmother or grandfather, so that is the mother or father of your father or mother. So, for example, your grandfather could be your father's father, could also be your mother's father. Likewise, a grandmother, that could be your mother's mother, that could also be your father's mother. Okay? Now, we also have mother and father. This is a little bit more simple. These are the people who birthed or raised you. We have sister and brother. So that is someone who shares the same mother or father as you. We have aunt or uncle. So that is a brother or sister of your mother or father. For example, your father's sister would be your aunt. Then we have daughter and son. So, just like our mother and father were people who birthed and raised us, the daughter or son is someone who you have birthed or raised. So it's the opposite of mother or father. Then we also have niece or nephew. So this is the daughter or son of your brother or sister. For example, if my sister has a son, that is my nephew. He is my nephew. Okay, did you follow along? I know that's a little confusing, so don't feel bad about pausing or replaying this video just to make sure you understand. So, to take another look at these terms, I think it helps to do something called a family tree. A family tree is basically a map or a graph, a visual representation of your family. So here you can see my family tree. I am in the middle, that is me, Alex. I've mapped out my father, who's Carl, my mother, who is Carol. I also mapped out my grandparents on one side, so that is Carl's father, Cedric, my grandfather, and Carl's mother, Cecilia, my grandmother. So, I also have my wife, Sandra, listed here, and together we have a daughter named Kendra. Okay, now this is a basic family tree. You can take it out further with aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews if you like. In fact, I have a challenge for you. Using these same terms, I want you to write down your family tree. You can write it on a piece of paper, you can use some technology, whatever you like. But see how specific you can get. Again, you could even take it a step further than mine and list out your aunts, uncles, nieces, or nephews. And by the way, if you are stuck, you can absolutely Google family tree to see many, many interesting real life examples. So, speaking of families, did you notice anything interesting about the names in my families? There's an interesting difference between these two groups on the screen here. Can you tell what it is? So I'll give you a hint. Try to read it out loud yourself before I read the names in a moment. So in group A, we have Carl, Kyle, Kevin, and Carol. In group B, we have Cedric, Cyril, Cecil, and Cecilia. Do you notice the difference between those two? So if you notice, Carl, for example, in group A, has a hard C sound. In other words, it's pronounced just like a K, like in Kyle. So Carl, Kyle. You hear that hard sound. K, K. In group B, we have Cedric, which is pronounced with a soft C. In other words, it's pronounced like an S. So, Cedric, Cyril, Cecil. You hear how it's a very soft sound, like an S. So, Carl, Cedric. So let's see if you can spot which of these words has the hard C sound. I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try to read it out loud, and see if you can figure out which words use that hard C, the K sound. Did you find them? Let's read these together first. We have cat, camel, ceiling, castle, city, circle, calculator, century, carrot, and calendar. Could you hear which ones had the hard C sound? So, let's look at the answers on the screen and go through these together. So, we have cat, camel, castle, circle, calculator, carrot, and calendar. Notice we have that hard C, that K sound in all of those C words. Okay, now let's take a look at that same list of words and see which words make the soft C sound. I will ask you to pause the video, try reading it yourself first before I do. So, once again, we have cat, camel, ceiling, castle, city, circle, calculator, century, carrot, and calendar. Can you see which ones have the soft C sound, the S sound? So the soft C sounds appear in ceiling, city, circle, century. Okay, you hear that soft C, the S, that sounds like an S. Now, for those of you who are paying a lot of attention, you might have noticed a really interesting word on that list, one that's a little bit different from the others. Can you spot the really unique case here? Let's take a look at which one it was. So, the word circle is really interesting because it actually has both C sounds in it. It starts with the soft C, the S sound, sir, sir, and then it ends with the hard C sound, K, so kl, kl, kl. So circle, circle, circle. So it's a really interesting example there to show that Sometimes C's make different sounds, and they can even make different sounds in the same word. Now, I know that sounds a little confusing. I know that sounds difficult, but just keep practicing, keep trying out these new words, and I promise you it will get easier and it will make more sense as we go along. Okay, so that is the last video of our course content for Askademic's Basic English course, but stay around. There's one more video for a closing reflection.